Thank you.
It's a mouthful.
This is not staff initiated. Okay, this is a request from Reagan Smith on behalf of Regents Development or Homes to revise our land development ordinance. On January 23rd, the Planning Commission had this on their agenda and deferred it, requesting a work session. On February 12th, the Planning Commission had a work session to discuss these amendments. On February 27th, they reviewed the amendments and deferred to another meeting that was scheduled actually by the development team, which was held on March 20th, as Mr. Simmons had mentioned earlier this evening. And then on March 27th, they took it under review again and is prepared to make a formal recommendation. Just in the interest of making sure that there's nothing left out, I'm going to go by them just point by point. Under table 4.4, the applicant is requesting that condominium and live-work unit along with townhome be included into the table under NC, which is neighborhood commercial, as permitted. Under section 4.6, they are recommending a table correction, which is appropriate, and also recommending that setbacks may be adjusted up to 10% or as necessary to accommodate easements for utilities. Under height restrictions 4.71, it's a table correction. Under table 4.13, neighborhood commercial lot standards, they're requesting under the diagram that it not only reflects street, but civic space for residential only. They are also recommending a change to lot coverage, which has been proposed under section 4.9.5, letter B, which is the NC standards. It's specific to that zoning district, and we'll be there in just a moment. They are also proposing lot width 50 to 200 for non-residential, lot width 20-foot minimum for residential, and then a correction of the table under building frontage. Section 4.9.5, here's where the bulk of the changes are proposed. They are requesting that live, work, and townhome units have a 5-foot or a 20-foot alley-loaded driveway. Any live, work, or townhome unit with a 5-foot alley-loaded driveway will have a minimum of a 1-car garage and provide overflow parking at a rate of 1.5 spaces per unit. In addition, any live, work unit or townhome with a 20-foot alley loaded driveway is subject to the 1-car and garage and overflow at 0.5 spaces, which is actually currently in our code under parking standards for any multifamily development. They are also recommending condominiums do not require driveways or garage parking, but parking be provided at a rate of 2 spaces per unit. Parking for all residential uses may be provided on street, nearby surface, or a combination of both. Under B, they are proposing lot coverage for non-residential be a 50% maximum, and for residential 90%. The residential lots that exceed 50% coverage will be required to provide additional area equal to or greater than the balance of that 50% in the form of open space or civic space. The additional open space or civic space shall be contiguous to or within walking distance of a quarter mile to the subject units. Under C, they're requesting live, work, townhome, condo locations and what this is, do we have one of the maps? Sorry, should have asked for that earlier. They're requesting that the location of these types of units, okay, it'll be in their presentation. They're requesting that these units be set back a minimum from the edge of the right-of-way on an arterial. They originally requested Columbia Pike, but the Planning Commission recommended that they identify it from the edge of a right-of-way on an arterial. And lastly, this was staff's recommendation, that civic space may not include a nature conservancy area, that it shall be a defined pedestrian area accessible to all residents. And then their last request is under 4.12.2 on-street parking may be counted toward required parking along the subject frontage. The Planning Commission is recommending these amendments to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and this is first reading this evening. Should it pass, we will set the public hearing for May 8th. Thank you. The applicant is here, the development team is here, and I believe they have a presentation.
Before we begin, I'd like to request that Alderman Bell recuse himself from this discussion and vote based on conflicts of interest between his employer, Gresham Smith Partners, and Regent Homes.
On what grounds? I'm sorry.
So there's several conflicts of interest that exist between your employer and Regent Homes.
What are they doing for Regent Homes?
That's for you to disclose, not me.
I'm not aware of anything.
Okay. Well, this is simply first reading, so I think we press on. Let's hear from the development team. I know this has been deliberated on, agonized over, lots of community input, lots of neighborhood meetings. I trust that what is being proposed is in line with, I guess, the sum total of all those discussions.
I think that there was a lot of discussion and a lot of thought that the Planning Commission put into this.
Okay. Well, I know that they put in a lot of work, the Planning Commission has. So anyhow, if the developer would like to come forward and Mr. McGowan, just short and sweet, or just.
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank the Planning Commission and all the staff for working with us, trying to work out the details. We really want to build, when we said all along, the intent of Tollgate, which is the town center portion of the property. A lot of little details that we've had in here would allow us to do that. And I think that we're well on the way of doing that. We do have the commercial tract approved. We are trying to get leases in that and get that thing moving on that, and hope to be submitting plans pretty soon on those. But as far as the rest of the sites, we will come back before the Planning Commission with each and every building that we plan to build in there, and each section that we build, and then work with the city on those. So I don't know if you have any questions about the particular amendments in there, but the bottom line, I think that if we can get this, we can move forward and get the town center under development.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Okay. I will entertain a motion for ordinance 2018-010.
I'll make a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 2008-010, an ordinance of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, Town of Thompson Station, Tennessee, to amend Table 4.4 permitted uses, Section 4.6 building placement standards, Section 4.7 height restrictions, Table 4.13 NC lot standards, Section 4.9.5 regulations specific to the NC zone, and Section 4.12.2 parking standards within the LDO.
All right. So I have a motion. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Discussion.
Okay. Discuss.
All right. First, under 4.9.5, second sentence is in red in our version. Any live work unit or townhome units with a 5-foot alley loaded driveway shall have a minimum of a 1-car garage. Mr. McGowan assured me at the Planning Commission meeting that the product that he was planning with 5-foot driveway would have a 2-car garage. Mr. McGowan, do you have any objection to changing that to 2-car? Okay. And then secondly, I want to point out the lot coverage 50%. They're asking for 90%. Other than that being a bad idea, I think town staff recommended against that. Is that correct?
Town staff did have a different opinion based on the fact that at 50% you still have sufficient yard area. I think one of the things that the development team had discussed with the Planning Commission and with staff, and I don't disagree with what they were saying, is that by providing additional area for civic space that includes pedestrian access. That is how they were planning on offsetting what staff's original concerns were.
And again, just to be clear, the neighborhood commercial district does not require any open space. So again, if they do exceed their lot coverage, you'd be building in some open space into the area.
And just make sure my memory is correct, I think that was the only thing that town staff recommended against.
I think we were giving some history on why these standards were in place. I think that as far as our recommendation, it was making sure that you had all the information from the past and why those were put in place before you made recommendations to change them.
Okay. Then the second thing on the lot coverage that I'd caution the board about, the additional open space or civic space shall be contiguous or within walking distance of 1/4 mile of the subject units. I would rather strike the 1/4 mile language. Leaving open space within 1/4 mile is quite a bit of leeway. I believe they've already done the math, and there's the extra open space that they're going to give us anyway. And this is just a way to get around our lot coverage restrictions and throw it in and get credit for that open space.
So you're recommending that it would say shall be contiguous to the subject units.
Yep.
I'm just trying to visualize that. I mean, I think I understand it. So we want contiguous green space and open space and play space for kids and walking dogs and so forth. Is this open space like in the median with the sidewalk, or what are we?
So by changing it from within walking distance, it means that surrounding the units, immediately surrounding the units, they'll have to provide that area, whatever that calculation ends up being, attached to those units.
Yeah, the picture that Mr. McGowan showed us was townhomes with 90% lot coverage,
Yeah.
and then kind of a median in the middle of a parking area, and that would be the open space.
Right.
But the lot coverage would be more, so essentially you had the same amount of green space in that area. My concern with the language that it could be 1/4 mile away is not what we were shown. I mean, that's.
Well, and again, just to be clear, it does have to qualify as civic space. So again, just green space in the median wouldn't qualify.
So what qualifies as civic?
Well, and again, we have all those definitions within the LDO. It's a green, it's a
Square,
a plaza. So again, that's why we wanted to make sure that language was included. And that's why we also wanted to make sure that it was within a proximity to those units, because again, you don't want to create an area that's just, a couple of feet of green space and.
So this says in the form of open space or civic space. And my concern is with open space, as we know in the rest of Tollgate, they don't have apparently one lot of buildable open space.
Well, then I think that might be a better amendment, is to say it has to be civic space.
It has to be civic space, okay.
And then maybe even eliminate, just like we did earlier, you take out the nature conservancy area and say, again, if your lot coverage is going to be higher than 50%, it's got to be a usable civic space.
Okay.
And then you can keep the potential walkable piece in there.
And that 1/4 mile is roughly, for the average person, about a 5-minute walk.
That's fair. I'd be okay if it was 1/4 mile, if it was civic space.
Civic space, and it has to be either contiguous or.
All right. Yeah, we'll bring plans into you, but if you go back and look at the plan, we gave you imagery of where the live works are going to be and some of the townhouses. The whole idea is to be able to provide adequate parking. And so you actually have parking behind those buildings. And so the question is, where is the civic space that you would have? And so if you go back around and look at other areas, we do have civic spaces where we have green areas that will be provided. It will not be immediately adjacent to those units.
Yeah.
And so
that would make
typically,
sense to me. Yeah.
in an urban type situation,
Right.
you create what we call pocket parks.
Yeah.
And so the pocket parks and the civic space would be within a certain walking distance.
Yeah.
And that's the main reason, again, is to address the parking. So if you didn't have parking back there, you would probably have an area to do it, but the whole idea is to provide that parking.
That's fine. I just don't want it to be swampland on a ravine.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Right, okay, all right.
Then the third comment I have is we've pretty much, Alderman Shepherd and I have well documented our opposition to this. But I haven't heard the other members of the board really articulate the reasons they're in favor of this. And before we vote for this, I'd like to hear those reasons.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and so let's take care of that.
Just
Do
for
we amend the second, or do we have a?
What was the, what
Let's
was,
go back to what we've done so far.
So the two,
We have a
Yes,
motion.
we would need to amend that motion to include,
Right.
if that's what we would want to have happen. I mean, the motion could be withdrawn, or it could be amended, and did Brandon, did you make the motion originally?
I did, yeah. What was the amended language under 4.9.5B?
It was
it was
the,
letter A, and it was for the 5-foot alley-loaded driveway. The minimum garage would be a 2-car garage. And then the second change is the removal of the words open space under letter B, the additional civic space. Oh, actually, it should be removed in both sentences, the one prior where it says in the form of open space or civic space, and then the additional civic space. So there's actually 3 changes.
All right, hang on.
Is that correct?
yeah, and
We're striking the contiguous component.
No, we'll leave that in.
No,
well,
let's do
you
it.
should just get rid of contiguous because it'll be within a quarter mile.
Yeah,
of contiguous.
I think what we agreed is that we want usable civic and open space.
Shall be within a walking distance of a quarter mile, right? That's what it's gonna
Okay.
say. Strike be contiguous or to or within a. Let me take a stab at this. I'll add to my motion the modifications under section 4.9.5 that changes the language. Any live, work, or townhome unit with a 5-foot alley loaded driveway shall have a minimum of a 2-car garage in lieu of 1 car. And then under section B, strike the text strike contiguous to or. So it'll read the additional open space or civic space shall be within a walking distance of a quarter mile of the subject units.
Should be just civic space.
Sorry, just civic space. Okay. So the sentence will read, the additional civic space shall be within a walking distance of 1/4 mile of the subject units.
Okay, so Alderman Bell has made an amended motion that accomplishes what we just talked about.
It does.
It's second.
So Mr. Stover second. Then you've spoken. Graham, anything?
I have a lot.
All right, let's,
I just want to start with some questions for Todd. So Alderman Bell made the comment, I don't think you were there, but he made the comment that he voted to rezone the front of Tollgate neighborhood commercial when we did the LDO as a means to put the brakes on development until the town could get the right partner. In your opinion, is that a valid reason to rezone somebody's property and prevent the property owner from selling that land? Put the brakes on development until the town gets the right partner?
Are you talking about when the LDO was adopted?
No, see, I don't,
I'm not, I
this
don't,
is what he said at the last meeting, at the town hall. You weren't in
No,
attendance.
yeah, what I'll say again is that this is a text amendment to the LDO.
Mhm.
So we are making changes to the neighborhood commercial zone, not for the plan that's been submitted, not for this developer, not even for the current still owner developer, but that it should be based upon consistency with the general plan and whether these changes are in the best interest of the town.
All right.
The legal language that is set forth in the ordinance for any text amendment.
All right, Alderman Bell also said he would only support these zoning amendments if Regent Homes did everything, it could only be Regent Homes, and they had to do everything, commercial and residential. That's the only reason he would support these amendments. Is it valid to make zoning decisions like this based solely on who the builder is?
Why don't you address that, Alderman Bell?
Yeah,
Give
what's
him
your
the courtesy
question?
of that respect. You got an issue with Bell, Mr. Bell, please.
Yeah, what's your
Well,
question to me,
it's a
Grant?
legal question. It's more of a legal
Le-
question. I mean, what you said is what you said. I just want to know the legal interpretation of it.
I think it speaks for itself. I don't know that there's, I would have to restate what I just said as far as what the standards are for a text amendment.
All right, let me,
And again, we don't know that Regent Homes is going to be ultimately the developer of this any more than Carbine was the original developer.
all right, let me ask you this one. Have you had any discussions with anybody regarding this request and the settlement of the takings lawsuit filed by the Tollgate developer against the town?
Yes.
You have. Do you expect this developer to drop the takings lawsuit if this board approves this rezoning request?
I don't know exactly when it came up, but during this process, we reached an agreement with counsel for MBSC to stay discovery until this zoning process was achieved. And they have represented that if this passes, they will dismiss their takings lawsuit with prejudice. We have not brought that to the board because we want the zoning changes to stand on their own merit or fall.
Have you told anyone on the board that information?
I don't recall. I've told Joe that information.
Did you tell anyone on the board that information?
Not that I know of. I don't believe so.
Okay. I do have a couple of questions for Mr. McGowan. All right, so this is going to be a separate HOA for this residential piece. It's going to be its own HOA. Is that correct?
Basically, in these type of communities, typically what happens, whether it's West Haven, Berry Farms, you have a master association that we fall under, and under that association is what's called a sub-association.
Mm-hmm.
In this community, in the section that we have here, there will probably be 2 or 3 subs underneath that. And so there would be required a sub-association on the terms that we would talk to the developer about creating.
Okay, and they all roll up to the master.
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay. And in all 3 of these, 2 or 3, I imagine it's one for the condos, one for the townhomes,
One for the
one for
commercial.
commercial, something
Right.
like that. All 3 of those, they will not be required to pay any HOA fees to maintain the amenities that are currently in Tollgate.
As far as any fees going back to the master, there typically will be some fees going back to the master. Those fees usually will be for detention facilities that would be maintained by the masters or other facilities that they share in. And so basically, we sit down with the developer and we look at it and we do a calculation. And so let's say some of the water we know right now is not going to the detention pond. It's going to a different area, but some of that area might be maintained by the association. So usually these subs association will contribute a dollar amount back to whatever association it should be paid for. So let's say the fountains out front, they're enjoying those fountains out front. So somewhere along the line, there should be some money paid to maintain that fountain out front, either from the commercial sub or the townhome sub or the condo sub.
All right. And even though they're sub-entity, I imagine all of them will be forced to use Crystal Clear, right?
Say that one more time.
All of these residents are going to be, and businesses, every single one will be forced to use Crystal Clear technologies for their internet.
We have talked to them about that, and they've explained to us that's through Dish service, and it is a requirement that it will go through the current provider of cable source in there. We have had discussions with them, and we were told that it is a requirement that we go through the current provider.
Okay. All right, so I just have some just quick questions. When did you first meet Alderman Bell?
Oh, I couldn't tell you exactly, but I've actually, I think, ran into him at a ULI meeting down in Nashville. I think it was an occasion probably a couple of years ago. To let you know, we've actually actively pursued this property for over 5 years. We actually looked at buying it before it was actually purchased in a repo situation. And we've made numerous offers in the past, over 3 or 4 years ago, to the developer on this property. So we've had an interest in it. We specialize in T&D type developments, and we have a team that has expertise in it. So we actually were rejected by the developer at the time. Brandon Bell, I think at the ULI deal, said, "Are you still interested in that property?" I said, "Oh yeah, we made an offer about a year ago." And he said, "Well, you ought to go back and look at it. I think they might be willing to sit down and talk to you." We got in touch with the developer and asked them what their intent was, and we presented a letter of intent of our interest, what we were interested in doing out here.
How well do you know Alderman Bell's boss at Gresham Smith and
Look,
Partners?
this isn't an inquisition,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Let's stay on topic here.
I'm on topic.
Well, I'll be
Get
honest.
through it, please.
Yeah.
I'm
I'll be
trying.
honest with you. We don't do any business right now with Gresham Smith whatsoever, and I do not know him at all.
You don't know him at all?
I don't know him personally at all.
Okay. Do you have in-house architects?
We do not have in-house architects.
Who do you use?
We use numerous architects. We use Mike Hathaway with the studio design in Franklin. We use Smith G and Associates. We've used Crossroads Architect. We've used numerous architects in town and numerous engineers. We have over 5 different engineers that work for us right now doing site plans and stuff. We do about 400 units a year. Just in the Tennessee area. In Alabama, we're doing probably this year 50 to 100. So we do spread that work around.
Okay. That's all my questions for you.
Thank you. Again, our intent is really to try to live to the intent of Tollgate's master plan. And I know everybody has a view of what that intent is, but I do think that when we get out there and get the product going, hopefully y'all will be real pleased with the product and end results. And these type of communities are very hard to work in. And this process is very hard, and we've put our effort in to try to get to where we are now, and hopefully we get there and get under construction this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. I appreciate you investing the time and effort to get to know the neighborhood, and to work with the master developer on a solution. So thank you again for being here tonight. Okay. All right.
Okay, I just want to make a couple more statements. So the first one is, I agree with Ben that there is some, at least the appearance of conflict of interest here, and it helps me understand how this vote is going and why it's going the way it is. I do see how Alderman Bell can benefit personally and professionally by this rezoning and this work, and benefit himself.
You've demonstrated absolutely no substance to that claim tonight at all. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I will refute all of your points tonight.
I understand, but I can see it. And I also can see why even Mayor Napier would vote for this one, because you take land that is commercial where potentially some more restaurants could go, which might take away business from his restaurant. I can see that, so I can understand why he might benefit personally and be for this. What I don't understand is how Alderman Stover can be for this, especially when he said, actually gave me his word that he would not vote to rezone the front of Tollgate prior to the campaign. Went around with Alderman Dilks all over campaigning and against this type of townhomes in the front in Tollgate. And the people in the last election, and contrary to what Larry Simmons said, most people do not support the residential in the front. Most people do support the commercial that is coming, Again, we don't know when that's actually going to come. But most people don't support the residential in the front, and I believe we'll show that again shortly. But with that said, I don't understand why Alderman Stover would be for this. And so, to the question Alderman Dilks asked, what are the reasons really for this? I can list off about a dozen reasons of how this
Graham,
is
it's
gonna-
real simple. The residents of Tollgate Village
Mhm.
have spoken. The majority of them have spoken and said they are in favor of this. This is what you've been preaching for months, that we should listen to what the residents say. They've spoken. This is what they want.
Then
Let's
what?
move on. Let's
right.
move on.
So
Okay, this is not benefiting you personally, the person who owns the most expensive home in Tollgate Village.
I don't have the most
okay?
expensive home in
This is
Tollgate Village.
this is a personal agenda that you have. This
I
is
don't have
nothing
any
more.
personal
Let's move
agenda.
on. Let's vote. We've got to go.
Yep.
All right.
Let's go.
So you just said,
Graham.
No,
Graham. No,
again,
let's-
I know it's your
let's call
tactic
the
to
vote.
cut off.
you need to wrap it up.
I'm trying to wrap it up.
Then
So-
make your final point and let's go.
This is
We're gonna
just
take
like
it.
the
We
other
need- we
meeting,
gotta-
10 minutes and
We
done.
got a motion and
As
a
if
second.
there's a clock on this. Yeah. But okay, here's one last point. So Alderman Stover said he's for this because he thinks the residents of Tollgate have spoken. But this is hypocrisy and a clear example of it. Because when 530 some people came and said the land deal, we want a public referendum, he didn't give a rat's ass about what the people thought then. He just went ahead and voted for the land deal. Couldn't care less. Now he claims, we need to do what the people want. If he really thought
It
that,
was amazing to me
if-
the amount of people in my neighborhood who signed that petition had no idea what they were signing. It was amazing to me that a resident of Canterbury who had no idea about my wife or myself was going around telling residents my wife was Mayor Napier's personal CPA and I was the sales rep for Circuit. My wife had to go to her firm and speak to her boss. Her job entails a license, an active license to be a CPA.
all right,
I don't know where, no, you're gonna let me finish now.
all right.
I don't know where that resident heard that information. I don't have enough dealings with him to understand that. I hope I never find out who told him that. That was a true sign of disrespect. That right there made me not believe what that petition was all about. When I have residents telling me, I don't really understand what I signed. I thought we would have a voice. The idea of that petition was we were not in favor of the bond referendum being issued. They had no idea what they were signing. They were just told, sign this. That's it. That's
All
it.
right.
So let's go.
We've drifted off a topic. Everybody's had a chance to speak.
Okay. I wasn't finished, but if you're cutting me off, you can cut me off, I guess.
Well, we're not covering any new ground, and I think it's devolving into
Well,
conversations that are
Just for the
unnecessary
record,
this vote.
I have no idea what Alderman Stover was talking about there, about somebody saying
Right.
something about his wife. I have no clue what that is.
I know. We don't have a lot of clues about where you get these conspiracy theories either. So with that, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-2.